Welcome back to the Douglas Podcast, the one and only podcast designed to help the one and only Bella, my fiance, fall asleep. My name is Douglas, and today we're going to be talking about something that happened in the news recently, something related to the former representative of New York, George Santos. But before we get into George Santos, a quick message from today's sponsors. This episode of the Douglas Podcast is sponsored by Late Night at Seth Meyers. Now, they have not reached out to me or given me any money financially, but they are responsible for a lot of my knowledge on what's going on in Congress, and especially with George Santos. He's a very great late night host, got to start at SNL, doing Weekend Update with Amy Poehler, then moved on and now works at the late night show, Late Night with Seth Meyers. And one thing I like about him is originally when he started out very formal, very suit, but since COVID it's gotten a lot more relaxed. A lot more of it are just bits and fun jokes between him and his staff, the audience. He's got a segment every week called Corrections, where he goes and responds to all the people that correct him in his YouTube comments, and I think that that's hilarious, and I love his content, and definitely one of my favorite late night hosts. But enough about the man Seth. Let's talk about the man Santos. Republican Representative George Santos was expelled from the House of Representatives. He was expelled from the House of Representatives recently. A vote of like 300 to 100. He's only the sixth person to ever be expelled from the House of Representatives. And the reason why is because he's a big old stinking liar. He lied about a lot of stuff during his election, during his service, still lying about a ton of stuff. I have a list here of every single lie he's told, and I wanna do some highlights. First of all, the reason I'm talking about George Santos is he's a very funny man, and you'll see after all these accusations that he is a very hilarious guy. If you separate the fact that he had any sort of political power and any sort of influence on American democracy, if you take that out, he's just a funny little guy. He used donation money to buy OnlyFans, which was great, and then upon being asked about it, said he had no idea what OnlyFans was and just learned about it recently. So that's hilarious. He used campaign money to give himself Botox, another hilarious mistreatment of donations. I think also recently it was recorded, it was during the middle, okay, so he's been like criminally charged for this stuff because it's illegal to use campaign money and donations for personal things. So he was being indicted with fraud and stuff. And during all that, he was just found carrying a baby. It's not his baby. It was just a baby. And when he was asked about it, he was like, "Wouldn't you like to know?" He was just holding some random baby. And there's no reasoning behind it. And I think that that's hilarious. Some other lies. He lied about where he went to high school. He lied about where he went to college. He said he was like a volleyball star at NYU. At NYU, he said he was a volleyball star. And then when they reached out to NYU to be like, "Hey, we just wanted to know about this George Santos guy," they're like, "Who's George Santos? We've never had a George Santos go to our school." And I think that that's hilarious. Let's see. He also did identity theft. That's also very fun. I've got a list here just so I make sure all my facts are correct. He lied. He identity theft to give himself donation money. Hilarious. he lied about a lot of his jobs before Congress too. Apparently, he worked for Goldman Sachs, according to his resume. And then when the same thing, they reached out to Goldman Sachs and they were like, "Hey, we just want to know about your employee George Santos." And they was like, "Who's that? We've never heard about him. Never heard of George Santos." A few other lies. He lied that his mom died in 9/11, that his grandma died in the Holocaust. Fun fact, he's not even Jewish. He said he is Jew-ish, which I guess that means nothing. It means he wants to pretend to be Jewish. He said that his niece got kidnapped. Not true. Aha. Here's where I found out. He just says he just hangs out with a lot of Jewish people, and that's how he's Jewish, because he hangs out with Jewish people, and that's really great. That's real hilarious. But I think one of the more hilarious things is, okay, so George Santos originally lived in Brazil. His parents are from Brazil. He immigrated here from Brazil, and apparently he did drag in Brazil. In 2005, his drag name was Kitara, and he did drag in Brazil, and that was hilarious. He also claimed to be in Hannah Montana and The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. And you know what? I just think that all of these lies are hilarious. That he's just out here blatantly like making stuff up. He's just out here like, hey, I did all these cool things, and then everyone just believes him. And I am going to tell you some of my opinions about this, but first, I'd like to introduce you to a segment we call 2 minutes uninterrupted of keyboard sounds, because you see, my fiance Bella, who this podcast is made for, loves to fall asleep to keyboard sounds. So if she's listening to this, fall asleep, and she's 8 minutes in and hasn't fallen asleep yet, then hopefully these 2 minutes of keyboard sounds will really help her out. Thank you. Thank you for that keyboard sounds. They are very appreciated, and I hope they were relaxing and helped you fall asleep. Now, on to my opinions about this George Santos guy and why I think this is one of the funniest things that has happened in the government in a while. First of all, this really goes to show that you can say whatever you want on your resume. And I really think that he is a Gen Z icon. Because in this day and age, job markets are getting very competitive. To get basic intro level jobs, you need to have tons of years of experience. You need to have a degree. The bar for entry into the workforce, unless you're working at like a Starbucks or a grocery store, it's very high to get into any sort of job like this. And because of that, what a lot of people are doing is they're like, well, if jobs are going to make it harder for me to work there, then screw it, we'll fight back. I'll say I worked at this firm for like 2 years, and the contact number I'll put for the manager is my friend. And they're not going to do too much research into it. They may call your former manager and be like, hey, we want to know about this person. And if it's your friend, they're just like, oh yeah, they were a great employee, they make up all these lies. And your employer's like, wow, that's awesome. And you know what? I think that's valid. I think it's valid to lie to your application. Even for like finding an apartment, people are like, I need to make 3 times the income. I don't have that. So I'm just going to fake a job and fake some pay stubs to say I'm making that much. And you know what? Good on them. As long as they can afford to pay the rent, there's no need that you need to be making 3 times as much. And so they'll lie. And I think George Santos is really an icon for this. Lying about where he went to school, what jobs he had. And, it is tough to get into Congress. And it's tough to have all the qualifications. And so what do? You just lie. His only mistake is that he put like actual places instead of just contacts to his friends. Because then if they were like, you went to the University of New York, yeah, here's their phone number. They call the phone number, they're like, hello, we want to know about George Santos. And then it's just your buddy being like, oh yeah, George Santos was a great student, he was a volleyball star, also did drag, amazing. And that's really where he messed up. But on a more serious note, it does speak to modern politics that this liar and fraud was able to hold any power. If you separate the politics from it, it's hilarious. But if you actually look into the politics, we had a president for 4 years who now is currently being indicted on fraud charges. He's got currently a civil suit against him for his company. He's being indicted on that. And while he is actively going to court each day for his case, he is leading the Republican Party in polls for the upcoming election and is even going ahead of Biden. And that's something a little scary. And George Santos is just another member of that. He's part of the whole coup. He was an election denier. He is a Republican, Trump supporting. And it makes sense because he's also a liar and a fraud. And you know what? If you really look into it, he took campaign money and used it for OnlyFans and Botox. And it's like, that, as funny as that is illegal. He's also lying about his heritage, his mother dying in 9/11, him being Jewish, and his grandma dying in the Holocaust. That's pretty messed up because people actually did die during those things, and lives were affected, families were changed forever because of those events, and he's just like taking that and being like, nope, that's mine too. And like, as funny as it is, it's also pretty messed up. And I think that the fact that he was able to serve for as long as he did without anyone being like, hey, like, This guy is committing fraud. You know? It's just like, we should have a more thorough vetting system, especially for members of Congress. It'd be one thing if he like worked at some law firm or some newspaper and he's like, oh yeah, I lied about where I went to college because it's hard to get into a job at this industry. But he was in the House of Representatives. He represented part of New York as a liar and a fraud. And you know what? Maybe say the irony. There might be some irony to that about a fraudulent man representing New York. And maybe it's like, well, he's just like them. But anyways, I don't know. You gotta have to try to separate yourself, because in reality, nothing you say is gonna change the politics. Nothing you say is gonna affect him, because you're just a little guy. You're just a little guy. And you can either choose to be like, this is so messed up, this is terrible, what has our democracy become? Or you can be like, this guy's hilarious, this guy is a Gen Z icon, he is a legend, he is a drag queen, he is lying on his resume to get ahead in the world. That's what I want to aspire to be in life. And this guy is hilarious. Because, honestly, whether you're for him or against him, I want to make it very clear, I am against him. I do think he's a bad person, and using real people's money to buy all this stuff for yourself and misallocating funds like that is illegal for a reason and is very undemocratic, and that's not what they donated money for. So yes, he is a bad person, but that doesn't change anything, you know? Oh, he's very hurt that I think he's a bad person. I don't think he cares. I don't think he knows who I am. And so I can choose to do that, or I can just be like, hey, he's just a funny little man, you know, funny little man, look at them playing him on SNL, haha, funny little man, he lies about everything. But yeah, those are my thoughts on George Santos and him being only the sixth person expelled from the House of Representatives, which is also like, first of all, I'm surprised there hasn't been more, because it's just like a vote and they kick someone out, you know? They just voted like, hey, do you still want him to be here? And everyone was like, no. And they were like, okay, he's gone then. You know, I'm surprised it hasn't happened more, but I get why they kicked him out. He's a liar. He was disliked. He's like he's a drama queen. I feel like he's a drama queen. Getting his OnlyFans and Botox and lying about it, stealing people's babies. But anyways, I'm rambling on now. I hoped this has helped you relax, helped you fall asleep, or if not, you got to hear me talk about George Santos, funny little representative Republican man. Well, not a representative anymore. Just a funny little man. Alright, anyways, thank you so much for listening to episode 1 of my podcast. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button and subscribe, and leave a comment suggesting the next thing I should talk about. Look, I got lots of ideas. I got lots of silly guys I can talk about, and if you want to hear me talk about something, I'll talk about it. Why not? But anyways, I appreciate you listening. Thanks for staying with me, and I will see you next time.